Good evening and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. The Free National Movement's landslide victory over the Progressive Liberal Party took place almost 90 days ago, yet the political blame game continues. Prime Minister Dr. the Honourable Hubert Minnis recently addressed the nation on the economy, healthcare, the New Providence landfill, education and the overall direction of the country. Opposition leader Philip Brave Davis, in a clapback national address shortly thereafter, said the Prime Minister's address offered no real plans of governance to get the Bahamas out of the critical issues it's facing. He also said his party made mistakes, but is still a powerful force for good. Prime Minister Minnis scoffed at the statements made by the opposition leader regarding his party and said what he needs to do is to apologize to the Bahamian people for the alleged ills done within his party while in governance. The verbal political clash continues. Meanwhile, some folks are uncertain about the longevity of their jobs. Former ministers fear the authoritative knock of the law on their doors, and the citizenry ask the question, what next? We are a nation in transition. Tonight's timely topic is a political landscape in transition, which is pretty much the state of our country politically. Our guests are Randy Roll, the former Consul General to Atlanta, prior to which he enjoyed a rewarding career in the hospitality industry, and Carl Culmer, who is now the FNM's Deputy Treasurer after a long career in the telecommunications field. He's also the chairman of Alive. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
No one does summer like we do. It's just a way of life. Light it up.
Time is now. We own summer. We are alive.
What are you doing?
Calling the bank to order more checks.
Go to epbahamas.com and order your checks from Executive Printers.
Executive Printers. We're the authority in business and personal check printing in the Bahamas. Come in and see one of our specialists or visit us online at epbahamas.com to design and order your checks today. Internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Join the revolution.
Welcome back to On the Record. A political landscape in transition is our topic for discussion tonight. Our guests are Randy Roll, now former Consul General to Atlanta, and Carl Culmer, Deputy Treasurer of the Free National Movement. Gentlemen, welcome to On the Record. In the beginning of the show, we really talked about how we have ended up almost in this transitional period. We have a new government. 90 days in, still getting acclimated in many ways, undertaking the mammoth job of governance. But you also have on the other side an opposition that seems to be trying to get itself together in many ways, coming after government in some ways, but also dealing with some internal issues. Randy, I'm going to start with you. You now are, for all intents and purposes, back home out of the position as Consul General in Atlanta. Very quickly, how does that work? I mean, shortly after elections, people were saying, oh, you know, so-and-so should come home, you should be out of office. But for the purpose of clarification, how does that work? If you are assigned abroad to a position, obviously put there by a political party that's now in government, once government changes, what happens and what should happen?
Well, certainly it's convention that anyone who's appointed by a former government will tender their resignation and allow the new government to put in place who they wish to. Now, being overseas, that process doesn't happen overnight. Certainly, it takes time. You have to end your affairs. You have different things that you just have to close up. And so usually, in the past, it's been like a 3-month period. Sometime it can be sooner, it can be quicker. It depends on the government. And so I think what we miss here in the Bahamas is that we don't really have a transition period. And I think that's missing. I think you need to have one. Certainly because over the time you would have built a lot of relationships. And I think that once you stop those and not able to transition it over to the next person, definitely there's a miss in communication, and the only people suffer from it is that of the government in the country.
If you think about it, because you've got to now hand off and hand over what was previously happening, etc. But to your point, I think it's a very good point. We don't necessarily have transition teams in governance like this. Is your party is out, and so everything with you leaves the same time. Carl Culmer, from a party perspective, though, how is sort of the FNM now transitioning? Because all focus is on government and on governance.
Yes, I believe there should be a transitional period. And you see that the government is not rushing anything. A lot of people are complaining that they want to see things happen now. Right. And the government is really given the time to transfer from one to another. And you're going to see that more and more every day. I know a lot of people are complaining that things are not happening fast enough, but they must understand that we're dealing with a business and you need to transfer from one to another. And you will see that more often. I see, for instance, the Prime Minister, his cabinet, touring a number of properties, getting an assessment of where they are and what's happening. Is this a time for that? Is that an important thing to do? I mean, they would have done Albany, they would have went to Bahama, a few other places. Why is that important up front? And you know, some people may say, well, you know, is this really a time to be touring properties? Well, the thing is, like any business, as you may be aware, you want to know exactly what you have. These businesses provide jobs and stuff for Bahamians. And you want to sit down and talk with them to see exactly what is going on, what issues do they have, how can we improve going forward. And I think it's great that the Prime Minister is taking time out of his long day, because as you're aware, the Prime Minister has a long day from 7 o'clock in the morning until late in the night with his team going through things. So I see it as something that is needed. You need to be out there working with your private sector to ensure that government and private work together. And I see it as a great thing. Randy, from the PLP's perspective, former Minister Obi Wilshkin recently said, the election is over, let's move on. Is that the general sentiment within the party, or are some people still sort of stuck in the pre-May 10th era?
No, I think you're going to always have a number of persons who believe one way and then the others the other. I fully agree with him. I think the elections are over. The FNM has been given a new mandate to govern for the next 5 years. I think that now it's time to move on. It's time to rebuild, and it's time to go on with the business of the country.
You mentioned move on and rebuild. From a PLP perspective, you've got 4 members in the House, 4 in the Senate, and so many other things going on within the party. What is the PLP's new role, or what is the new mandate? Obviously, you know, as a member of the party, you're obviously not into the sort of day-to-day running, but from your perspective as a member of the party and having been within come from the belly of the PLP, really what is happening within the party? What is their new role?
Well, certainly we had a former prime minister who has since resigned. He's accepted again fault for the defeat, and so I think that that issue there is a non-issue. Certainly now it's up to the new interim leader, and actually it's the new leader, because in the constitution of the party, once the former leader resigns, then the deputy leader takes over the realm. And so now Mr. Davis is the new leader of the Progressive Liberal Party. It's up to him now to get the machinery together, certainly accept, you know, the will of the people, and do what he has to move the party forward.
There have been, and I put this out to both of you, there have been calls from within the party and from outside of the PLP for the PLP to apologize to the Bahamian people for some things that have happened. Carl, I'm going to start with you and put that question to you. Do you think that has been, well, there have been calls obviously, so there are people out there who think that it has not been done. But why is that important, or why do you think that's important for the opposition at this point to do?
Well, listening to the leader of the opposition, he said that the PLP made some mistakes during their time in office. And to really sit back and think on what they've done and how they have taken the country backward. And we have lost a lot in those 5 years. And many things have happened during those 5 years. I think to start fresh, it would be good to hear the leader of the opposition saying, hey, we made mistakes, we apologize for our mistakes, and we want to move forward. But you cannot continue to regurgitate the same brand of politics that we've been seeing over the past 40 years in the Bahamas and expect to move forward. I think we in the Bahamas seem to get personal rather than look at issues and look at processes and recommend solutions as an opposition and a government, rather than getting, you know, we get personal and look at try to personalize things with persons rather than trying to come with solutions to move our country to another level. I think the Bahamian people have outgrown that type of politics where you get personal and try to down your opponent. We have outgrown that. And so the Bahamian people, if you listen carefully, they're asking for more. And we need to understand what is going on with the Bahamian society.
Wendy, I want to put the same question to you. Do you think, you know, as a member of the party, has the PLP done or is doing what even members, Chester Cooper, Reynard Rigby, Philip Galanis have called for, to apologize and to come to the people and say, you know, we have made these mistakes, you know, we're sorry. Has that happened to the extent that it should?
Like I said previously, Jerome, the former leader of the Progressive Liberal Party, Perry Gladstone Christie, he, in his resignation speech, he accepted responsibility for the defeat. Certainly, the now leader, Philip Brave Davis, he has said, hey, we've made some mistakes. We now intend to rebuild. I think that if you look at it as a sentence, the Bahamian people decided on May 10th that they were going to fire the PLP and hire the FNM. So that in itself speaks to, okay, this was our sentence, this is your sentence. You have now 56 months until the next election. The FNM now has the mandate to govern. And so it's now time to accept it. The PLP must now rebuild. The FNM has had the mandate to govern, and the FNM must now govern.
Okay. Gentlemen, we are at the point of our first break in the show. We have lots more to talk about. Certainly comments from both of you I want to revisit in this upcoming segment. We are at the point of the break. We are going to be right back on the record right after this.
Shooting last night claims the life of a young woman.
Providence being urged to evacuate as soon as possible. That story.
Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis weighs in on those reasons.
Inside the huddle, everybody, I'm Marcelo.
Force officer behind bars today.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Get faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
We are now in a new political era, a new prime minister, government, and opposition. What are the new challenges, and what role will the Bahamian people play in this new era of governance? Join me, your host Jerome Sawyer, each week for On the Record as we examine the latest political news and views. That's On the Record, airing every Thursday at 8 p.m. on cable channel 212. See you then. Welcome back to more On the Record. Tonight we're discussing the political landscape in transition. Our guests, Randy Roll and Carl Culmer. Gentlemen, as we went into the break, two things that I want to go back to that you would have discussed. Carl, you talked about this brand of politics and how the brand of politics has changed. You have an electorate that is made up predominantly of young first-time voters. And Randy, to a certain extent, you represent that grouping in some way as well. What is changing, and what is the electorate now wanting out of their politicians and out of politics?
Well, Jerome, as you're aware, in my opinion, we're still back in the Pinland age when it comes to politics, where persons believe that, when I say I'm talking about the older set, they believe that, hey, they must do something or to get something. And they must be loyal to a political party in order to, say, relevant to get something. The young people today, they're saying exactly how they feel and what they want. And they're demanding change in this country. We have yet to accept some of those things as the leaders of the country. The leaders must understand that the way we did business back in the day, back in the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and the 2000, will not be conducive to the way to grow our country. Our country need to be able to, persons be able to get our best persons in place. As you notice, and I must stick this in for the FNM, even with the boards, with appointments this lap, you notice the board is made up of young, old, middle-aged, and they even have PLPs and FNMs. We now reach a stage where you don't get political with given jobs and stuff. Over the years, mostly with the PLP, you will see that jobs were given to cronies, and normally they were not the best persons getting those jobs. There were persons who got jobs because, hey, I wore the PLP label, or some, and to a lesser extent, probably the FNM. But Minnis is bringing a different shift, hey? He's allowing, in my opinion, the better of our countrymen to come forward and to be a part of growing our economy, growing our country, growing, putting them in places that they could best suit it. There are going to be some growing pains where, you know, we have to readjust some things to do some things to get the best results. And the quicker we use our better persons to get the job done, rather than putting in political appointees or putting persons in places for political reasons, rather than using the private sector to help and making it easier for persons to get into business. Right now, it's difficult to do business in our country because of all the red tape, the politics, and the system that we have in place. We need to get rid of that system, get rid of the politics, and use our better people to move this country to another level.
We're going to come back, but Randy, I'm sure you would want to respond
to Carl saying, though, that F&M cronies are not getting anything at this stage? Because you made reference to political or PLP cronies.
Well, the thing is, if you notice, Jerome, with the board's appointment, that's one of the first things the F&M did. And if you look at those boards, F&M's complaining that there's a lot of PLPs.
Well, PLPs is saying that, in essence, what you've said, in the reverse, that the board appointments have gone to F&M cronies.
No, this is the first time I see a balance of going.
Now, Randy, you were appointed relatively young to a position as Consul General, and people were very critical of that, saying that you should not have gotten the job, and you got it as a political favor.
Right. Well, certainly, like I said, I was appointed as I happened to serve as the youngest political appointment in the history of the Bahamas. And I took the approach, Jerome, that I was going to take politics out of service. Certainly, you know, people were, okay, he's a PLP, what has he done to deserve that job? Before even giving an opportunity to see, look, what does this guy have to offer the country? I believe that when we go in with a mindset that, oh, you know, because Carl is F&M, he should not have that job, is the wrong choice and the wrong way of thinking of things. I believe that as Bahamians, we are to give every Bahamian an opportunity to be of service to their country. And so, you know, board appointments, you know, fine, you appoint some board appointments. I have absolutely no issue with the board appointments. But I believe that, you know, there should be a mix.
Do you though accept that what the F&M has done this time around is different from what the PLP has done?
I see no difference as it relates to board appointments.
Okay. Interestingly though, but how do you, and this is my question too, if I have been loyal to the party, I have been at Minnis's feet or Christie's feet, when he was in the wilderness in the opposition, I am with him, I'm with the party, I sacrifice, I give, I'm at every rally, I'm door to door. When my party wins, it is natural for me to look, well, not me, but it is natural for individuals to look for a reward. That is what sometimes people work towards. Hey, when we get in or when the party gets in, I looking for me, I gotta get mine. I mean, and how do you say to a person who has been loyal, who has given so much, who has sacrificed, well, maybe you should sit on the side, I could bring somebody else in who loyal to them other folks.
Even cabinet ministers, Jerome, cabinet ministers, a prime minister picks a cabinet because he's going to look around his table, see who he has on his team that won their seats, and then he wants to bring those individuals who he feels he can trust, who he has the confidence in. And so Dr. Minnis, Prime Minister Minnis, he did that, and I have no problems with it whatsoever, but he wanted to bring around him people who he feels can push his agenda in his cabinet.
Well, I differ about that. If you notice, Minnis' cabinet is made up of a number of different makeup. As you can see, there were some persons who spoke out against Minnis being the leader. Minnis still has them a part of the cabinet. There were some new folks that knew nothing about politics. Minnis brought them in, and they're part of the cabinet. So you will see that the cabinet, this cabinet, is made up of a combination of different characters, different personalities. And Minnis is now allowing those persons to work together to move the country. So there might be some ones that he probably, because of their capabilities and trust, but yes, he has a different makeup of his cabinet. And you said something earlier about persons expecting something. It's quite human that persons would expect something, but allow those persons to work within their capabilities. Do not promote a person in a position that you know, or just to give them a position just because they're F&M or PLP. give them opportunities to work within their scope and allow them to do things that would not embarrass you or the party that we see happening today.
On the other side of this discussion, the opposition is accusing the FNM of victimization, saying they are firing people who have been in the public service because they are PLP. The FNM says they are tightening the economic belt. When you look at, for instance, what's happening within the Ministry of Tourism and bringing individuals home who would have been in various offices, merging those offices in some places. Is it victimization on the surface, or is it government being frugal? Brandy, I'll start with you.
Well, for example, tourism, I don't think that, in all fairness to the new Minister of Tourism, I don't think that he looked at a person's political background to say, well, I should bring them home because they're either FNM or PLP. I believe that the Minister of Tourism is a professional. He's a businessman, a successful businessman. And so, you know, they have their policy, they have their agenda as to what they feel should move the country. I believe that, so, you know, they would have made those decisions. Yeah, there are some people who feel that, hey, just because of my political affiliation, I'm the victim of what they call victimization. But like I said, you know, the FNM has the mandate to govern now, and I believe that they should be given the opportunity to pretty much put their team together and govern as they see fit.
What I'm always curious about is if you are serving at the pleasure of a government and the political party that you support, and you were brought in for that particular reason, upon a change of government, should it not almost be an expectation that your tenure is over?
Most definitely, when it's political. I agree.
But how do you then make the difference, and how do you discern what's a political appointment or what's a, you know, this gentleman is, or this young lady is qualified for the job, so I hired him or her as a government?
Well, for instance, let's look at some of the jobs that were given days or weeks before an election.
Right.
The PLP did injustice to most of those persons. Most of those guys probably haven't even went through the process, the vetting process, to ensure that they were qualified for the job. And we need to get away from that type of politics where I give you a job for a vote. You know, the behemoths want to be more than just a job, a person owning a job. It's the time we give behemoths the opportunity to own things in this country, where they will be a part of the ownership, the economic pie. Far too often now, and this goes right back to the old politics back in the 60s where we had to transfer from the UBP to the PLP and the new Bahamas. I believed in that new Bahamas back then, but we have strayed away, the PLP have strayed away from that. We need to move that to another level now where we do not give jobs for political favors. We need, and I'm being.
Is he saying only the PLP gives jobs for political favors?
I'm saying that we need to move away from that. Okay, we need to move away.
But PLP, you made reference to the PLP.
The PLP is big with that. And I can tell you.
So you don't think that the FNM does?
The FNM might have a little bit, but the PLP uses that more than any other political party.
So you say a little bit. I mean, in my time, I have seen political appointments
across the board.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the ones that like ambassadors and those. I'm talking about giving jobs to behemoths for a political vote.
Rewarding.
Rewards.
But, you know, the reality is it happens throughout government.
Yeah, and I think we need to get past that, okay? Because we're not getting our best sons and daughters the opportunity to move our country move forward.
I think for every political party, the role of a political party, the role of a government, sorry, not a political party, is to find opportunities for its citizens. And so, you know, I don't have a problem with any government, Minnis government, Davis government, whoever, to find opportunities for its citizens. I understand what you're saying right before a general election. Certainly, there should be some time.
On the surface, it doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right.
It will be perceived as a job for a vote. I mean, however you look at it, weeks out from an election, you know.
And Jerome, we must understand that we, the taxpayers, cannot afford everyone who wants a government job to get a government job. We
shouldn't have a government job.
And the thing is, I'm big on this, we need to relax these antiquated laws that we have that prevent Bahamians from getting into businesses.
Agreed. I'm going to stick a pin in that because definitely we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Also, when we come back, we want to look a little bit at the FNM performance, 90 days in office. Stay with us. We are looking at a political landscape in transition. On the record, my guests, Randy Roll, former Consul General to Atlanta, and Carl Culmer, the FNM's Deputy Treasurer. We'll have more on this discussion right after this.
No one does summer like we do. It's just a way of life. Light it up. Come close to me. Come feel the heat. Light it up. We're free. Come close to me. Together we light it up.
Our time is now. We own summer. We are alive.
Well, the contractor at the heart of a controversy surrounding 10 o'clock newscast, I would say, is a more fresher approach to news. While you have the same good, hard stories that would have been in the 7:30 newscast, you also have those stories that didn't make it to the 7:30. And another thing that we're doing differently is we have an entertainment section. So we have entertainment as well as sports. I like to call it, I guess, more well-rounded newscast that you definitely have to tune in at 10 p.m. to see.
Speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
Welcome back to the second half of tonight's show. Our topic, a political landscape in transition. We continue our discussions with my guests tonight, Randy Roll and Carl Culmer. Gentlemen, the former PLP administration riddled with allegations of high-level corruption. Frank Smith, former chairman of the Public Hospitals Authority, Kenry Dorset, former Minister of Environment, have both been arrested and hauled before the courts. Shane Gibson, as recently as yesterday and reported in the media this morning, brought in for questioning. Even as we sit in the studio, this show questions about whether he will be charged. What does all of this do now for the PLP? What kind of cloud does this cast over the Christie administration and, by extension, the PLP party?
Well, you know, if the PLP was following the reports coming from the Auditor General and following history, they would have made some of these calls before now. It's amazing that it's a surprise to folks to hear that these guys are being questioned and charged. Those allegations have been around for quite some time. And that's why I see it difficult to listen to any one of the persons from the former administration come up and speak to victimization or should be quiet. What needs to happen now, we need to purge the system. And the system is being purged. And the good thing about the administration, they're staying out of it and allowing the police to do their job. And I believe once the system has been purged, you can see a different Bahamas. Persons will not be running for political office to see it as a way to get rich. And over the years, that's what seemed to happen. Persons want to be in the political arena because they see an opportunity for them to gain financially. You go in as a poor man, you come out as a rich man. And it's difficult for kids growing up in an environment to see the politician doing these things and getting rich. And it also sends a wrong message to our society.
Randy, I want to get you in on this discussion. You would have been a part of this administration, really. You know, your feelings on all of this, and how do you view what is happening to former cabinet ministers who sat around, you know, governing the country? These men are being hauled before the courts.
Certainly, because matters such as this are before the courts, Jerome, I want to be very careful on how I touch on them. What I just want to be certain of, and I think the country should, because we don't want to go down that road, whereas, you know, it's not political. Here it is, though. Yeah, these guys are being hauled before the courts. But is this a process that's happening from the Attorney General's office and not necessarily from the other political side? Not knocking anyone on the F&M, Free National Movement, or whatever. I believe that if there are evidence of corruption, then certainly, you know, allow the laws to take its course. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to, again, make it seem like... See, the thing is, you know, people from the opposition are saying, hey, this is a political witch hunt.
They're calling it a witch hunt.
Why are they able to even refer to it if it's an independent process? And so I just want, you know, that we should be very careful on, you know, the direction of which it takes. For example, someone told me the Minister of National Security commented on it. Certainly, if it is a court matter, then allow the process to take its course, and, you know, allow the law to take its course. You know, they try to, and people try to paint the Progressive Liberal Party as a corrupt party.
I was about to say,
I disagree.
That is, I guess, to the heart of my question.
Yes.
That if you have members of this party being, you know, brought before the courts, and you just want to put it out there that you, as the law say, you are assumed innocent until proven guilty, and of course the law, that's why the courts and the law are there. The law is there. But from the perspective of the image of the party, this must be having a negative impact on this party, the party that is of Cylinder, that would have brought the country through from majority rule, to majority rule, and the party that would have brought the Bahamas to independence, and this notion of Bahamianization, and this party that has this rich history. But here it is now, members of the party tarnished, you know, seemingly in the public's eye. I mean, how is that affecting the party?
Well, certainly, again, too, like I said, it's a negative stigma. But, you know, even in terms of these allegations, or you're going back and you're questioning former members of parliament, how far are you going back? Why is it only members of the Progressive Liberal Party? Are you saying, are they, or is it coming just from persons who are making complaints? Again, we want to make sure that it doesn't come across as political. Well, and if it doesn't, then again, we have no problems with it. But don't try to paint every PLP as corrupt.
Yeah, and Carl, that is a serious assertion. Is this just, or does it look like just a witch hunt on the PLP? And is it, you know, are you in danger really of now putting the Minister administration and the F&M in a very precarious position, seeming to go only after the PLP or specific members of the party?
If you listen to the Prime Minister says corruption is corruption no matter where it is. And he says if there's F&Ms that be found wanting, they will go and face the law. But I would like to go back further. This thing started quite some time back.
And for the record, I believe him.
Huh?
For the record, I believe him.
This thing started back in the 80s, when we had the Commission of Inquiries.
The Drug Commission of Inquiries.
Yes, and that was an independent body. And if we were to take the recommendations and the findings from the Commission of Inquiries and did what we're supposed to do then, I don't think we'd find ourselves in this position today.
Yeah, but Carl, I want to say something too. That Commission of Inquiry, I think, happened somewhere in 83, 84. The PLP would have won resoundingly in an 87 election right after that. So the people voted the government back in, having come through a Commission of Inquiry with very serious allegations against sitting members of the government. But the people voted the government back in.
Back then, you realize our people was loyal between parties. Now you see a trend that Bahamians is not loyal to parties any longer. If you do wrong, regardless of who you are, you'll be out. And this is not ministers crying for honesty and fair play in society. No. The Bahamian, this is something that the FNM campaigned on, and this is something that the Bahamian people are demanding now. They're saying, hey, don't care who you are. If you're corrupt, we don't want you a part of the government. We want you out. And you can find out probably, it will probably extend straight through the system, where persons who've been found with their hands using that in the cookie jar will be found wanting. And that's the only way we can get our Bahamas back to where it need to be.
Randy, do you think, and if it had been said, I may have missed it, but do you think that the hierarchy of the party, of the PLP, I don't know if they have, but come out and publicly condemned any form of corruption and said, you know, if it would have happened under the Christie administration, we will not stand by, we will not uphold it, we think it's wrong, let the law take its course. I don't know, has it happened? I may have missed it.
Yes, I know the leader of the opposition now, Brave Davis, in a press statement, press release in the, I think the minority room in the House of Assembly, shortly after, I think, the first arrest, he came out and he said, you know, let the law take its course. We just don't want it to be perceived, again, for persons to say this is a political witch hunt. There has to be a number of things that point in that direction. Let's make it as independent as possible. Right. Again, not knocking the minister administration, because again he campaigned on it and he's living to his campaign. I have no issues with that.
Is it though a healthy thing for personalities within the party to be in the background, calling it a witch hunt, stoking the fire, again, without having sort of all the facts on the table or being able to speak to specifically why you think it's a witch hunt? This is the evidence. I mean, you saw Wayne Monroe said he was going to produce, and then he said he was going to produce a list, and then turned around and said, well, I don't really trust this unit set up within the force, so I'm gonna hold it for now. You know, these are things, from my perspective, that seem to sort of that threaten the integrity of the whole process. Because I'm sitting back and I'm looking and going, well, you know, at what point is this a legitimate thing that happened, and who is going to provide that legitimacy?
Right, and again, too, you know, they're saying too that I think the leader of the opposition said too, they received information or evidence that, again, maybe the police force is calling the media and saying, look, we're taking this individual to court on this particular day. I think what happened with Frank Smith, where he went to court and the files weren't there. Yeah, stuff like that. But mind you, it happens on an everyday basis.
In the defense of the, well, not even in the defense of legal system, but you know, guys normally go to court every day and the files are there.
But again, too, it brings light to stuff like that. I think for the common man, too, again, it opens some things where...
Let me just say this, too, in defense of the system, that when the police are taking a matter to the court, whether it's a murder, etc., they have that relationship with the media. Whether they call in on a daily basis or they will call into a newsroom and say, we are arraigning so-and-so, or we're arraigning someone on such a judge. So that that communication is already there with the media, and whether you're a member of parliament or you are Joe Blow from, you know, McCulloch Corner, the police will have that. They will have that rapport with the media, and they will call and tell you we're arraigning someone on a murder charge, or you know, a corruption charge, or whatever it is. So there, you know, there is that discourse that takes place. But again,
the thing is, Jerome, the PLP is saying there's a witch hunt. Let's say what the witch hunt is. Identify what.
You're asking to provide evidence.
Yes, provide it, because you just can't make these accusations without proof. Those days are finished now, where you try to play on the sympathy or the ignorance of the Bahamian people. You know, let's if you say there's a witch hunt, provide the evidence, and let's ensure that the system is fair, the system is right, and there's justice in the system.
Let's change gears a bit from here. The FNM administration taking office almost 90 days. Have they lived up thus far to some of the promises that were made during the campaign, being slapped with some realities? Have they lived up to those promises, and are they, in effect, doing what a new government should do? Randy, I'll start with you.
Well, certainly, in all fairness to the new administration, I believe that the 90 to 100-day window is the honeymoon stage of any government. I think that, you know, it gives them the opportunity to come into power to, again, review and see what's there and see what needs to happen with a policy. I believe that since we've now come to the end of it, going forward, the Bahamian people, and like Kalma said, expect now their government to govern now. And so certainly, you know, in all fairness to the administration, in all fairness to the FNM, the 90-day window is up. Now people expect, moving forward, to see the country grow, to see people empowered, Bahamians empowered, and to see things happening. And the same thing to the leader of the opposition. Mind you, the role of the leader of the opposition is to keep the government's feet to the fire. He has now taken office. He's not been there since election. He will have his window in which to realize and understand what's going on. And now people expect, mind you, the FNM has a mandate to govern for 5 years. And so, in all fairness, I think the Bahamian electorate has come to a point where we want to see change, and we want to see it right now. And
Carl,
it's kind of unfair.
Carl, is the Minnis administration keenly aware that, and responding to the fact that that honeymoon period is coming to an end, and people really are expecting to see action?
I am quite aware that our Prime Minister is aware of the things that Bahamian people expect. Bahamian people want to see changes on the first day he took office. You know,
within hours.
Yes, so he's aware of that, and I believe he's working hard behind the scenes. A lot of folks have a problem with the break from the last assembly to September. That's something that happens all the time in the system, and. This being a new government with new people not knowing the system, giving them time to learn the system, so they have no excuse once they know the system. And Minnis is a hard taskmaster. He is a hard task. A lot of people see Minnis and they saw him on that soft side. Persons who work with Minnis on the inside will know Minnis is not soft. Minnis is, when he give you an assignment, he expects you to come with results. And a lot of folks, especially those guys working with it in the cabinet, going to find out that either going to perform or they can be out. Minnis don't take nonsense. He don't take excuses. And going back, yes, I believe that the government is living up to its promises. There are some things that couldn't happen because, and they were honest. They came out to the Bahamian people and said, we cannot do it because. And that's what you want from a government. You want honesty from a government. You want them to tell you why they can't do it, and if they're doing it, why they're doing it. And you can see that going forward.
So I hear you with your you know, the assertion that he is a hard taskmaster, works very hard. Obviously you're close to this. What happened as opposition leader? What happened for him to have been ousted as leader in the House, and for all that dysfunction to have taken place with such a small grouping in the House of Assembly, if he is the person that you say that he is?
Well, if you realize Minnis didn't say nothing much, but behind the scenes, you notice things were falling in place. He didn't run down any of his opponents. He didn't place any hardship above them, but Minnis was working behind the scenes. I watched Minnis day in and day out, and me being who I am, I'm quick to say, hey, let's chop that head off. Minnis would say no. Allow it to work out. This is going to be the end result. And basically, what the end result, what he predicted, normally happened. Minnis is one of those guys. He's a technical guy. He's a technocrat. He worked. You don't get not much thought from him, and you see that now. He has a person who speaks on behalf of the government and his office, and he's working behind the scenes. But you would find that he would live up, and I believe Minnis is going to be one of the best prime ministers this country will have over the next...
Gentlemen, we're going to take our final break in the show. We do have a few more things to address. Stay with us. We are back with more on our discussions right on the other side of this break.
Shooting last night claims the life of a young woman.
Providence being urged to evacuate as soon as possible. That story.
Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis weighs in on those reasons.
Inside the huddle, everybody, I'm Marcellus.
Force officer behind bars today.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin.
We are now in a new political era, a new prime minister, government, and opposition. What are the new challenges, and what role will the Bahamian people play in this new era of governance? Join me, your host Jerome Sawyer, each week for On the Record as we examine the latest political news and views. That's On the Record, airing every Thursday at 8 p.m. on cable channel 212. See you then. And welcome back. This is the final segment of our episode. Tonight's topic, a political landscape in transition. We are transitioning as a country in many ways. You would see from the last election, the millennials and first-time voters making up that largest block of voters. These young people and this generation, I call it a microwave generation. Everything is instant in the now. But are we, as politicians and the political directorate, are we prepared for what the public is asking for in terms of that immediate change and that change? And I'm asking that of both parties. I'm going to start with the opposition, but clearly there are some things within the PLP that people are demanding happen and take place. Even PLPs from within that organization want some and expect to see some things happen. Is the party now receptive to that kind of change? From the outside, you know, there are some people who seem resistant to that, but, you know, it's almost as if, you know, this seems to be the clarion call of the people. Is the party in a position now to make those things happen?
Well, most definitely, Jerome. I think the party understands that. I think the new leader of the opposition, he understands that. What we know for sure, Jerome, is given looking at the numbers of the last general election, there weren't only FNMs that voted for the FNM. PLPs voted for the FNM as well. Given the large numbers.
And there are PLPs who will tell you that.
Who would tell you that they did. And so, you know, change is imminent. Change must happen. Change has happened within the opposition. And so, again, the task of the new leader of the opposition is to build a machinery, whereas he can come back to the people in 56 months and find out if they wish for him to govern.
Before you get to respond, is there a place, though, within that new PLP for people like a Randy Roll, new faces, Joe Beth Davis? Is there a real place in the PLP for that? And I ask because the PLP in many ways is an institution, governed by what I call a good old boys club sometimes.
Well, again, you know, there's an old saying that says, you know, power concedes nothing without the demand. And so even though, you know, no one's going to give you anything, when I decided that, look, I wanted to represent my country, you know, people said, hey, you're young, or where you going? You just reach. So you have to push. And regardless of, you know, the people who fight against you, if you want something bad enough, you have to push to be a part of it. And so I don't think that anyone, PLP, FNM, whoever, is going to give you anything. If you really want to make a difference in your country, then you have to fight and push to make that difference.
Carl?
I don't see no changes coming under the leadership of Brave Davis.
Why not?
Brave is a part of the old school. He's a part of the former administration. He sat there when a number of things happened and said nothing. He's a part of a legacy. I think for the PLP to move forward, you need the Chester Coopers, you need the new persons, because the Bahamian people are demanding more. The old guard is hard, and the PLP is same not to release the reins. You have the Bradley Roberts, and you have former members of the old guard now saying, "Hey, we need to change." But that old guard that is strong in the PLP wants to keep that grip, and it's impossible for the young persons like the Coopers and the Jobats to step forward with new...
I totally disagree with Paul. Again, to look at the F&M administration under Hubert Ingram, again, to a leader that I've come to respect and appreciate as well. Under his leadership, you had persons like the Minister Dion, folks who served in there. You had Tommy Turnquest, who also served under them. Mind you, they're now back with Hubert Minnis.
Tommy's not back.
Tommy's not back, but he serves a significant role because he's chairman of Bahamas Air. And Bahamas Air has a big role in the governance of this Bahamas.
So, but you differ in his view of what will happen in the PLP. Why?
Because again, like you're giving the government a chance to again rally its troop and get their plan together, so it will happen in the F&M. So will it happen in the PLP with Brave Davis. Brave Davis will put the team together that he feels is best suitable to regain the government of the Bahamas.
Let's look at Bamsi. But Brave has lost the trust of the Bahamian people because you cannot take his word. One day he's saying that there's insurance in place. The next day he's saying not. Then he has conflicting reports coming forward. One day he's agreeing that we should move forward. The next day he's saying we Richard Hunting.
I don't think you're being genuine. I think you're being political.
So the thing is, I don't think the brand of leadership that Brave is going to bring to the country, that's outdated. We need to move where we see progressive leadership, where it's all inclusive, where there's persons that will ensure that, hey, rather than criticizing and being personal, you will have persons with recommendations, with solutions. We in an era now that persons want to hear what you're going to do.
So if you apply, let's say you apply that same premise to a Prime Minister Minnis who would have served under Hubert Ingram and has now come to the fore as leader, he doesn't come without service and without a record. What if you apply that same premise to him?
Well, let's look at it. I listened to Brave, let me be respectful, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Brave, talk about the F&M meant the economy in a good state and 2017. Let's look at 2012, when the PLP took over. When the PLP took over in 2012, the F&M borrowed money, yes, but you can see there was the roadworks, there was the airport, there was the seaport, there was the hospital, just to name a few of the things. In 2017, we borrowed much money, and we had VAT, almost $2 billion. There's nothing to show for that.
Was your question answered, though?
But there's a difference between, I'm getting to the answer. There's a history that, hey, these guys produced under the Hubert Ingram administration. Under the Perry Christie administration, we were tax heavy, the monies were taken and spent, but there's nothing to show. So I'm saying Brave was a part of that system where Bahamians lost faith in his government and the Christie government, which Brave was the #2 man in. All kind of things happened during that era. The Auditor General said things that they didn't adhere to. So I feel as though we need to have a new brand of politics coming from the opposition, where we have new faces that would put pressure on the Minnis administration to perform, plus bring solutions to the Bahamian people to show why they should be elected the next time if Minnis administration does not perform up to par.
He does seem to make, there is a point to that. In some instances, from a perspective now of moving country forward, you know, we're at a point where I call it my generation, that 40 plus. We're now poised to take over.
Yes.
You know, I always ask the question: is there room being made at the top for that to happen for my generation and even younger to rise?
Well, Jerome, if you notice, our generation has been robbed of that opportunity. We had guys who brag and boast how long they've been in Parliament, 40 years, 30 years. Yeah. And what have they produced in that amount of time? And our generation, the guys who are now in the 50s and the 40s, do not have an opportunity. And so we cannot allow the same thing to happen to the guys in the 30s and the 20s.
Coming to the end of the show, Randy, I'm going to give you the last comment of the day. Really, what would you like to see now in this Bahamas? And I keep saying we are a country in transition in many ways. When you're 40, anything in life, you know, a late Archdeacon William Thompson say life begins at 40. Mm-hmm. So a country now at 44, you know, well, you say you have start to catch sense at 40, but we're really in a new phase, in a new era in many ways. Where do you see yourself, your generation, in this Bahamas?
I think, Jerome, for me, growth and change is eminent, is important. I want to see us where we get to a place where we're able to make proper transitions from one administration to the other administration. Once the elections are over, we now need to get to a place where we not continue to divide the country, but bring it together and grow as one. You know, at the end of the day, we're all one Bahamas.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, definitely good place for us to end on, and a good position to take, because a lot of times I think when people are involved in politics, they are blinded or jaded by the politics and not looking at the national picture here. Gentlemen, thank you very much for a great discussion tonight. I'm sure that my audience has enjoyed it as well. It's been very insightful, you know, and our job at the end of the day is to be able to get as many ideas out there as possible, because, you know, ideas are not really confined to just one group or one set of people. So thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Most definitely, and look forward to having you again. Most definitely. We hope that from an audience perspective that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to my guests Randy Roll and Carl Coleman, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for watching. Be sure and join us for more On the Record, same time next week, same channel. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time.